All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Let's do it right.
Good morning. Welcome to the Java Cafe. Java fan.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Good morning. It is very obvious that we are back at the home studio. Do me a favor, because if you watched on Friday, you may have heard that I kind of crashed out a little bit at the beginning because audio wasn't working right. So we're going to make sure that audio is working today. Do me a favor, just go in the comment to confirm that you can hear me. I don't see anyone saying we can't hear you. We can't hear you. So I think we're good. It is Mental Health Monday, and I'm excited to have a special guest in studio today. They're in studio. So, you know, when someone's in studio, it's a different conversation. Brother Vaughn, I'm going to ask you to do me a favor along with everybody else. We're going to focus on men's wellness today. It is Mental Health Monday. And so do me a favor, tag a couple of brothers, hit like, hit share, and invite others in to be a part of this conversation. We are chatting with Fields Corner Yoga. Now, obviously, a person runs it, but we are getting ready to chat with a good brother by the name of Shaun Leonard. He is a good friend, a supporter, an investor. And what I mean by that is that we've had some very interesting conversations about Java with Jimmy and some things that you have seen and will see. He's had an influence on them. He is a person that moves in wellness, very frank, upfront, very connected, knows construction, knows development, knows grant making. We'll talk a little bit about that in a second. But again, do me a favor, hit that share button and invite others into the Java Cafe. And without further ado, in studio now, for those of you that are charter members, you might recognize his background. We bought the now I'm stuttering because I'm looking at it. We bought the what is it called? Divider?
Yes.
We bought the divider back out from 2000 and 2020. So just because things back there. No, so I'm messing. But listen, Shaun, what's up, brother? Good to see you in the room.
Great to be in the room.
Now, you all know I'm usually more energetic and stuff, especially on a Monday. Started on my second cup of coffee, but just this dude's presence in the room has me kind of. So, all right, let's do what we usually do. Is go ahead and greet the folks, say good morning, and I'm going to ask you specifically by your observation of what you do, being a Black man, seeing what's going on in the world, describe men's wellness in one word.
Good morning, everyone. One word.
One word.
Stability.
No. Hold on. You didn't follow directions.
You
Say
said
good morning.
I said good morning.
Greet the audience.
Good morning, everyone. Greetings. Welcome to
And like
Java with Jimmy. My name is Shaun.
This is going to be
I'm
interesting.
the Corner Yoga. You good?
So,
One word.
One word. Give me the one word for seriously men's wellness. What would you say?
Stability.
So stability when you say stability in the context of it being needed for stability, or I was more asking by your observation, the status of men's wellness. Yeah. Is there a different word rather than stability?
Emerging.
Okay. Good. All right. So before we get into some of the context of that, like I need the audience to know it's your first time in the Java Cafe, like literally.
Yes.
But you support and pop in on Instagram often. Hold on, let me just make sure, because he was the one that told me the other day that I didn't start Instagram until late. Okay, Instagram has started. Shout out to everybody on Instagram. We're going to do greetings later, but tell folks about yourself, who you are, and then end it in sort of, tell a little bit of your journey and end it in the space of how you came to being the founder and the CEO, director, wellness person of Fields Corner Yoga. Like, give us the whole skinny.
Okay. Well, I'm a high school love child, so I was made in just pure passion and love, right, by young people. So I just came into the world, searching for unconditional love, all jokes aside. And that's really what brought me to this journey. Like everybody, we all have our story. We all have our upbringing. So I won't touch too much on the particulars of that. But as I grew older and became more self-aware, I started to continue to seek self-realization. And that's what really brought me into the space of wellness.
And again, to some extent, Shaun is kind of short for answers until I ask something and spark, and then he's going to go in. So, you said that, and that was very brief. Come on, man. Like give us a little bit. So let me tell you about the audience. They will assess you your first time in before they filter through what you're trying to bring them. So the more open you are with them, the more, impact you'll have. But you just did that in like 10 seconds.
I'm trying to be respectful of your time here. And I know you have an agenda that you want to move through. So
part of it is, okay.
So I'll go further.
Okay, go further. Tell us, seriously,
yes.
Like for you, if you would answer specifically the things that you mentioned about life, when was the realization seriously for you around prioritizing wellness?
So I would say in high school. High school was challenging for me. I was a student athlete. I started smoking marijuana regularly, when I was about 13, 14 years old. And that turned really into self-medicating, in hindsight. We fast forward through high school, and I was fortunate enough to go to prep school. I was fortunate enough to go to college on athletic scholarships. And you're just kind of moving forward and just rolling forward with the momentum of being a student athlete and the energy that is, and holding on to and holding dear to your heart that lottery mentality that, I'm going to make it to the league, and that's going to change my life, and that's going to change my trajectory. So not paying much attention to anything else on the peripheral, just really locked in on that idea that, I'm just going to go to the league and I'm going to have money and everything's going to be good. And I wasn't great, but I was good enough to sustain that narrative all the way up to senior year of college. But I had some injuries along the way and some challenges along the way. And then you graduate and you didn't make it to the league. And there's a lot of anger, there's a lot of frustration, there's a lot of, hindsight, and coming back home and just not necessarily having put in what I could have put into my education really limited my options. I had very, very average grades coming out of college. I didn't really do much to prepare for life. So I just came back, and I was back home in Boston, looking for a job, not making much money. And that kind of spiraled into, you know, that self-medicating, getting a little bit deeper, going into a little bit deeper with alcohol and other things. And it looks normal, whereas I'm working and I'm going out on the weekend and I'm partying and I'm running around and all these type of things that are really, really normalized. You work hard so you can play hard type
Yes,
conversations
sir.
and type philosophies. But then I got myself where I just found myself, arrested, in trouble, and woke up in, an orange, little get up in a lockdown, and
Did you ever tell me that?
probably
I
not.
don't think.
But
Go ahead, sir.
so it's not that big of a deal, It wasn't that. It wasn't a long incarceration or anything like that. So maybe I belittle it or bring it down and play it down because that is really serious.
Yes, sir.
And people, spend their life there or
Yep.
spend numerous years there. So I don't want to draw any comparisons between, my iron vacation weekend,
Yep,
my
yep,
long weekend.
absolutely. Yep. And I
So,
know a lot of people that respect that.
right. So, but for me, it was a tremendous moment because I remember waking up in that cell and just feeling so blessed and feeling overwhelmed with gratitude and just appreciation. Um, and that might sound strange.
I was going to say why, because most people in that situation, and some of the first thoughts is, especially today, you woke up in a cell. You woke up, you were still alive.
Correct.
Was that the context when you say thankful?
Yes,
Okay.
that part of it, but also too that God was holding me, or the universe was holding
Yep.
me, or whatever you believe in was holding
Yep.
me, because I was not in control. I was out of control.
Okay.
And I had totally disregarded, you know, how fragile my life is. And I had totally just disregarded mortality, and found myself in a situation where, I risked, that line of fragility and what life is. And I could have easily left the world that same day, but I woke up. Um, and not having that intentionality in my life and not being in control in that capacity, that was a wake up for me. And that's when I really, really started to dive into my pain, my history. What am I going through? Why am I self medicating? Why am I, just blacking out and going crazy and doing everything that looks like a good story
Mhm.
on Instagram, or looks like a good trip when you're traveling and you're popping bottles and you're standing on tables and you're doing all this cool stuff. But where are you on the inside? Right. So that's when I really started to reflect, that day when I woke up there. And from then I started to just, really move on a inward journey to really process, my childhood,
Mhm.
my adolescent years, my young adulthood. And it brought me to a place where I needed something that was beyond just faith.
Yep.
And I needed some tangible frameworks and principles and ethics that I could almost, create like a playbook for myself.
Mhm.
And that's what really brought me into wellness and exploring wellness.
Thank you. I knew there was going to be one particular question that you would go in and answer the way I was looking for. And so some of my first thoughts are, we're intentional about this conversation today. Has your manhood in a Western American community, Black to some extent, has your manhood improved with the focus on wellness and with with sort of the stereotypical of manhood? And why I'm asking that, because you said, when I asked you about wellness, men's wellness, I think you said emerging. It is emerging, but sometimes in these emergences, or when things are emerging, they're sexy, they're trendy. I asked specifically when you really took it serious. You told us when, you told us how. Has that improved your manhood beyond just the sexy trend of I'm going to focus on myself and be well?
There's a lot of ways to go about answering
I'm
this
known
question.
for asking 8 questions in one.
In the context of, let me ask a clarifying question.
Mm-hmm.
Are you speaking in the sense of like things that are common now where we have associations where there's just like toxic masculinity that's kind of present in certain behaviors or
You asked me a clarifying question. Here we go. I'm asking more in the thing of how important is it for men that are conditioned to be strong and to handle things on one hand, not address things. How you define manhood, has that improved for you? And has your manhood even been more defined in the wellness? This is your fault because I move on the vibe of the answers of my guests.
Okay, that's no problem. So yes, I have evolved. And my self-awareness and my definitions of myself have evolved. And I would say in particular with yoga philosophy, I go beyond the adjective. So the adjective is the identity demographic. The noun is the human. So going beyond the adjective, going beyond the male identity or this identity or that identity, the student athlete identity, and focusing on the human side of me has definitely brought me beyond that, simply because that perspective brings me beyond the parameters of that defined role. So 100%, because when you go beyond something, your consciousness changes, it evolves because you're beyond the limitations of that definition. So as I, with intentionality and with philosophical awareness, went beyond the idea of masculinity and almost to a point where you're bringing intentionality to become non-attached to that role, you then start to focus and feel and live a little bit differently. And so to answer that question, absolutely 100% me changing how I approach life, changing how I behave, changing my choices, living with ethical conduct has certainly helped me develop as a human.
Okay,
so then that brings me beyond the limitations of that role.
So when you talked about parameters, and I'm going somewhere with this, I love where you are, and it's where I, aspire, and I think others to be, because my mother commented, she was like volume, and I'm like, okay, you're not going to get a whole bunch of that type of energy out of Shaun. In the parameters, though, of what we are accustomed to, the conditioning of being a man, what is some advice you would give to any brother that may watch this later, that may, watching now or whatever, or see a clip? What advice would you give, particularly to a Black man in these times, around some real, for lack of better words, I'll say authentic assessment, and then addressing their wellness and all encapsulating of however you define, wellness? What advice would you give for brothers that are trying to get on a road, that, they're doing the gym, they're that stuff, they're kind of eating okay, they take this CMOS, but that real, and I'm guilty, that real commitment to being well within the parameters of the conditioning we're accustomed to, what advice would you give?
It was Malcolm X. Malcolm X said, a man who stands for nothing will fall for anything.
Yep.
So you have to have principles, because principles then allow you to have discipline. And then the discipline allows you to then have commitment. So you want to hold yourself accountable, but you want to have grace. So it's a balance. It's a harmony. Life is about relationships. So if you're an individual, firstly, you have to look at everything holistically. So it has to be the mind, the body, the spirit, the physical health, the mental health, the social health, the spiritual health. You can't just eat CMOS and then go to the club. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I don't know why that did that, but we got interrupted by Alexa a little bit early today. But go ahead, Brother Shaun. I'm sorry.
Alexa's always welcome. It's fine. I'm very AI friendly. Me and ChatGPT have a great relationship. Say good morning every morning.
That would do that. I'm just going to go ahead and talk. I'm going to make sure I'm not missing a reminder. Go ahead, sir.
No, but to not to drift off and digress, to keep it kind of really succinct here. Harmony and balance is what you have to commit to. You can't expect yourself to be perfect. You have to be okay with failing. Failure is very important, and understanding that that's how we grow, that's how we learn. You want to have that grace, but then have that discipline to really pull all those relationships, be them internal, external, relationships with behaviors, relationships with other people. It's holistic. And in bringing balance and harmony to those relationships. I'll zoom in for an example. I have a relationship with food. How do I bring harmony and balance to that relationship with food? Because I want to eat well, but also I want to have times where it brings me joy when I eat, or it brings me relaxation when I eat, or it brings me celebration.
Mhm.
So I have to find a balance there. But in order to really have that balance, you need some type of discipline. You need some type of principles where you're like, okay, so I'm going to have black coffee during the week.
Mhm.
But if I'm at an event, or if I'm at a birthday party or a brunch, perhaps, then, I can have a vanilla latte, right?
I thought you were going to say if
So,
it was
so the point of it is like potentially you need to be better with your sugar intake.
Yep.
Right. So it's a lot to ask for somebody to just never have sugar again. Is it really that serious? That's why you have to have those principles. You have to be able to look at that situation like, okay, I'm going to commit having it without sugar, but then at the same time too, give myself grace. I am human. I do want to celebrate. I do want to have joy. I do want to have these other things. So you can't just totally subtract one or the other, because you want to have that harmony and that balance. But then that's going to, again, circle back down to those principles, that discipline, because there's going to be times when it's a Tuesday and someone's like, yo, let's have a coffee, but you made a commitment. So are you going to turn this into a celebration? Is this a moment that you're going to turn into joy? And if you are you going to offset one of your other ones?
On Saturday, like no latte on Saturday.
Or like those are the type of practices that I feel, really, really are simple and basic, but they bring that intentionality to your life.
Okay.
That will translate into health and wellness. It sounds oversimplified.
It could go either way. It could sound oversimplified or deep. Thaddeus asked the question and said he needed some clarity on my question to you. And I just, to try to be as simple as possible, is that I think it's important that we keep affirming as much as possible the reality of some brothers that sometimes just for life's reasons don't prioritize wellness. Sometimes there is still an air of wellness being soft. And so Thaddeus, it was in that context that I was asking, Shaun, for some for some tools. And what I heard was define your principles, be realistic about how you will live by them. I also heard there sometimes as men that you said balance and give yourself grace. So don't over set the goal, but set a goal that you can be realistic with throughout life.
Absolutely.
Throughout life. So getting this in real time. Even if you mess up on implementation, if the foundations of the principles, you can always fall back, because the principles are the principles. They're not action. They inform action, but the principles, they're just solid. Correct?
They give you purpose.
Okay.
So when you have clarity in your purpose, you have clarity in what you're committed to, then you can have accountability. You can have something that you can measure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I heard a few things there. And again, to Thaddeus's clarifying question, it was, to kind of dispel, some of the sometimes soft perception of, taking care of yourself, self-care. We can kind of go into that a little bit too in the context of what you're talking about. And then we're going to get into how you've taken this experience, this philosophy that you have, and now there is an edifice or place that you promote this wellness through yoga and other wellness activities. So just that quick, I forgot where I was going with that.
I'll close out real quick.
Go ahead.
I'll just close out in a more maybe
Go
organized way. There's no recipe to life. If there was recipes to life, everybody be winning. That's just not what it is. And we have an objective human experience. We come, we live, we leave, but there's no recipe to it. So I'm saying that in the context of what can individuals do. They can acknowledge that it's their journey. That's where the grace comes in. It's your journey. You're figuring this out. You're going to make mistakes. That's good. Lean in, but run your own race. I know Thaddeus, run your own race.
Yeah. Oh, he said, Thaddeus, run your own race.
Like that's a way to think about it,
yes,
right?
Sir.
Because you're not running against everybody else. You're running against your own personal time. You're running against what you're trying to do. You're running for your values and what, so running is a beautiful example of that process, because you have to have principles. You have to have consistency. You have to have discipline. You have to make choices around your life. You have to have lifestyle management.
Hence, I'm not running a 5K yet. Thaddeus has a question for you. He said, as yoga continues to grow within the Black and Brown communities, how do you see the balance between embracing the physical practice and honoring the deeper philosophy, especially in spaces where parts of the philosophy may not initially feel culturally familiar or fully embraced? Generally, a lot of our community grew up in Judeo-Christian, and some of that clashes.
Absolutely.
But they're to Thaddeus's point, there's a lot more gospel in the background, but practicing yoga. So to his question, I won't convolute it anymore.
Yeah, no, that's a great question. It's a valid question. It's a conversation that I have often. You have to, firstly, again, be grounded in your principles, because a part of everything in life is not being worried about what other people are talking about. Now, backing up, it is undeniable that Hinduism is part of the classical trainings of yoga. That has a lot to do with proximity, but it also has to do with the fact that, yoga was created and developed and fostered in India adjacent to Hinduism. So there is clear challenges there for certain Christians.
I like the way you frame that. But thank you for being real, because you're also doing some educating here. So please proceed. Yep.
Yes, 100%. So if you're doing mantra, for example, that's in Sanskrit, that's a Hindu prayer. So if you're in a yoga studio and someone does Om, and they start to chant mantra, that is Hinduism. So people all around the world are practicing Hinduism, and they don't really necessarily grasp that.
Yep.
No problem, I don't think. That's on their own journey and their own intention. However, it is a reality. So you cannot deny that. And it's a great question to ask. So my answer is something that was derived from my experiences with the teachers that I had while I was in India. While I was in India, living in the ashram, there would be people coming from all over the world. And there was a French person who came, and they had the similar question. I enjoyed the physical practice, but beyond that, some of the philosophy is challenging for me. I'm a Catholic. I'm a devout Catholic. And the teacher said, you don't have to say the mantra before your practice. You can say Hail Mary. You can adjust it. You can curate it. You can develop it however you can. And that goes back to my statement about there's no recipe to this. It's your journey. So stay true to yourself. Stay true to your principles and work it into it, because the framework of yoga isn't so tied to Hinduism. There are certain practices of the overarching yogic experience that are tied to Hinduism. However, when you dig into yoga philosophy itself, it's more about a framework of practical skills and activities that you can align with and implement in your life that will just, what should I say, expand upon your Catholicism, expand upon your Islam. Because what it's going to do is it's going to make you more disciplined. It's going to make you more ethical. It's going to make you have that consistency that's going to create that balance and that harmony that is a part of every religion in the world. Every religion in the world gives examples
Mhm.
and suggests for all its followers that they will have the capacity to be able to endure challenges, to have resilience, as long as they commit to the principles of that respective uh, existential view or philosophical view or religious view.
What is interesting to me, and what I'm going to put in church terminology, is there was a part there that you basically said, I'm going to name it church vernacular. Yoga can make your relationship better with God. I heard that. You know what I mean? And the adaptability of it. I heard there as well. And so I think this is maybe a good segue, and hopefully, Thaddeus, that answered your question from earlier. This is a good segue into how you've taken life experience, your philosophy toward yoga, understanding it. I know you spent some time in India. You was how long were you in India?
I've been there a few times. The
Okay,
longest
the longest
was for as long as you can stay on a visa, so 6 months.
I remember because didn't you was like, I got one. You said you got a one-way ticket.
Yeah, I did.
And I was like, what does that mean? So
I didn't have a plan because there's no plan, because I'm always good. That was kind of, the philosophy behind that choice. But yeah,
I know folks are wondering, how old are you?
38.
Okay. For me, this is more commentary. It's interesting because Thaddeus said he loves the answer, and thank you. My life experience, and a lot of people that I've talked to, and just by observation, is that 40 is a number of change. Jesus was in the wilderness 40 days, 40 nights. It rained 40 days, 40 nights. The earth changed. I'm curious to see what the hell you're going to look like at 40. Because you know what I mean? With this, sort of philosophy like that, I just want to raise one thing as well, because what I'm also hearing from you is you had that experience, brief as you named, with the orange suit. You've been through some things and have named trauma in life. But what I see sitting in front of me is someone that's sitting in peace, at peace. And I just have to name that for any brothers that watch, because it's possible. That's why I asked you earlier about this sexy trend and whatnot. Like, no, the real, and I keep coming back to this word, so I'm going to say it. The gut bucket, just getting into to where we are and being better men, however we define it, especially in these times, is I think priority, because of some things to come. You're into current events, world events. You understand there's mental health impact. And so again, just some commentary there. One, looking forward to seeing when you're 40. Two, the real literally sitting in front of me, someone that has been through a lot and that has been able to get to this place of peace. There are a lot of brothers right now that I'm sure would love to get on a journey, and however they place their goalposts to get there. This is all now evolved into a space known as Field's Corner Yoga. What from the philosophy, the trip, if I remember right, anniversary last week before April
4 or 5, so a few weeks
4 or 5. So a couple of weeks after first, still in the same period of Java anniversary.
Yes.
Couple of weeks. 1 year. This is now a physical space where what is it that you do? It feels corner yoga. I'm going to try to do better with the question.
No, it's great because
tell me
it's
what you
hard
do.
to
It feels corner
understand.
yoga. Everything.
So really, I could give you, you do yoga there, you do this, that. The real true concept behind Fields Corner Yoga is to create a safe space for wellness practitioners, health and wellness folks, from an entrepreneurial standpoint, safe space for them to fail.
Hold on. So there's entrepreneurship, mental health, fail, that space for that deeper.
So that's the real space behind, that's the real purpose behind the space. The space was created to be almost like a WeWork, like a flex space for wellness practitioners. So typically when you have a yoga practitioner or a yoga teacher, however they identify themselves, they'll work at a studio. Let's say there's 20 people in the class. It's $20 a person. There's $400 made. The person gets $50, $60, and then the studio gets the delta. I wanted to flip that upside down. So I wanted the practitioner, the wellness provider, to be able to reap the benefits of what they're doing and the experience that they're curating and the energy that they're sharing with the people. That's really fundamentally what is the business model behind Fields Corner Yoga. It's certainly more of a, I would say, social enterprise. It's not a nonprofit.
Yep.
But it's more of a social enterprise than the traditional yoga model where you expect to just go there, walk in, take a class anytime, and just do what you do some stretching, do a little, high intensity, whatever, at respective classes. That's not really what Fields Corner Yoga is. You're not going to walk into Fields Corner Yoga off the street. You're going to be welcomed by somebody who's curating an environment and you're their guest. So that's how it works there.
So there's intentionality with it, who's coming in and when. Go a little bit more into the not for the purpose, but to be able, a safe space to fail. Talk a little bit more about the entrepreneurship, and then I want you to talk about, well, maybe this is the after dark subject, the entrepreneurship and the mental health of being an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I use that language specifically, a safe place to fail, because through my observations in business, I've recognized and come to realize that one of the biggest differentiators between privileged and marginalized communities is being able to fail. So people that are on the margins, they don't have a margin for error. They can't fail. More often than not, you cannot fail. You cannot.
Or is it also because they're almost already set up to fail?
Whether it's an access issue or whatever it is, that failure can be so consequential. You might not be able to pay your rent, or you might not be able to do this or that. So when you're on a marginalized group, failure is really not necessarily an option. When you're in a privileged group, you can fail. You can go out and try to have a business and get some money from your friends and family, and they'll give you some money, and then you can just raise up some funds. And then all of a sudden, like, the deal didn't work out, it didn't go through, and you just go back and get a LinkedIn account and, go get a job somewhere. That's not everybody's reality. So uh, it was very, very important for me as an owner operator to curate a space for people who look like me, who come from backgrounds like me, to go and be entrepreneurial, but be able to fail. So what does that look like? Say you're going to rent a yoga studio and it costs you $200 to rent it for an hour. Now you got to make money. Now you got to hustle. You really want to teach yoga. You're doing other things. You're working at the mall. You're doing this other stuff, but you got all these little things, because that's what really happens. People are gig workers. When they do wellness, they'll be a massage therapist and they'll drive for Uber, and then they'll work at Whole Foods or something, right? Like, they're doing everything that they can. And they're not in a position to be like, all right, I'm going to rent this space for $400 and then try to, like, promote it, get it organized, get everybody in there, do all the administrative tasks associated with that, and then, take a shot and hope people show up. But if they can rent the space for $30 for 90 minutes and they can get, you know, 5 or 6 people there to pay $5 to $10, maybe it wasn't what they expected, but now they at least had the opportunity to exercise that activity. And that's critical for all businesses. All businesses and all entrepreneurs need to exercise their activities. They need feedback. They need to fail. They need to, if you're opening a restaurant, you need to put out a dish, you need to get it to do a taste test, you need to fail because you need to know what works and what doesn't. No matter what you're doing, you need to fail. That's critical for businesses. It's critical data points. We don't necessarily have that opportunity. And then when you talk about us socially, so that's talk about from a financial health perspective, right?
Let me just ask you one question before we move socially. Is that a good business model for you for Fields Corner Yoga?
I don't understand the question.
When you say that, you 30 minutes, $30 for 90 minutes versus you said the standard is $200 for an hour.
I'm just making up numbers there, but I
I
mean, everyone's fairly familiar with rental spaces. Rental spaces are typically going to be $100 per hour.
Okay.
They're not going to be less than that, especially in the city of Boston.
So I just wanted to clarify because you're intentional. When you said $30 an hour, I was like, wait a minute now. Okay. It was just random numbers as an example.
No, but it's not though, because I know what you're getting at. It's not about profitability. So
you're not in it for
that's
the money.
not about, that's not there. There's various, I have various levers.
Yep.
I have various verticals. So your original question is around the purpose behind it. So I zoomed in on that. There's other ways to make money, but that's not necessarily what I was talking about. I was talking about the purpose, and the purpose is to be able to create this safe space for people to explore entrepreneurship, to build their brand, because they could have 500, 600, 700, 1,000, 2,000 followers on their Instagram platform or doing something like that. They could have a very nice relationship with all their students. So people are really actually going to that yoga studio for that person's class. Anybody who's listening who has done a yoga class or done any type of fitness, that's why people go from one trainer to the next trainer, and they're successful with one trainer and they're not successful with the other trainer. It's not that either trainer doesn't understand athletic training or physical training. It's just that people vibe differently and people connect with people differently. So my point is that, when you're going to someone's yoga class, you're going to their class. They might be at that studio, but you're really going for that person. So why not empower that person? Why not create an opportunity for that person to build their brand? And that's really why I wanted to kind of turn the model upside down so that people could come in and take those risks and be like, all right, I'm going to try this. I'm going to go out and I'm going to try to organize my own class, because every time I post something, I got 50 people. Every time I put a story up, it's 20 people sending me a message, right? But like, to take that leap to rent a space and to put their hard-earned money from Whole Foods and from Lyft into their dream of being a wellness practitioner is sometimes too much of a risk, because they have to pay their rent. So they can go out and eat a meal for $20, $30. Come out and rent that for $20, $30. That's a reality. I do work with folks in tens of amounts for hours.
In tens of amounts.
Not in hundreds, in tens. Now, to your capitalist question. Yes, I make money. I have other services that are outside of the purpose of it. So you have to be able to, support that and sustain that by other levers. So I do things like corporate audits while I work with an organization. I'll look through all their standard operating procedures, interview their employees, see where they're missing, see where they're strong, create some type of basically diagnostic report and an implementation strategy to help them foster employee wellness, to help them create a better organizational culture, because firstly, that's going to be person focused and help them have a great culture. But then when you have a great culture and you have a person focused entity, you're more likely to have increased production, less turnover, and those type of things like that. So that's one lever that I have. I also do individual lifestyle management with folks. So the exact type of thing that we're talking about, where somebody is an athlete and they're in high school and their parents want them to have a little bit more balance. So it's not about the yoga on the mat. I do most of my yoga off the mat, getting people with understanding frameworks to, you said yoga brings you closer to God. I would say yoga brings you closer to yourself. And then when you're closer to yourself, then you can know God, um, if that makes sense.
I can tell you in about 30 seconds, I'm going to be reading notes from the mothers in here talking about, amen. That's right. I want to go back to a question. There's a comments in here. I don't know if you know Reverend Amani. I'm going to go back to a clarifying question that Thaddeus asked, and we're talking about men's wellness today. In creating spaces for masculine energy, and don't forget, we got to go back to the social piece of
Yes.
Field's Corner Yoga, but in creating spaces for masculine energy and healing, how do we ensure we're also being inclusive of all identities, including gay men, trans men, and non-binary folks who might not always feel fully seen when we just say men? And to Uncle Thaddeus, and this may spill into an after dark subject. I get the context of his question, and it's real, but we got to also own and name that they're right, wrong, or indifferent. There is a population of our brotherhood that just is not at a point, don't accept anything outside of what is defined as, heterosexual male and cis, born a male. And so it's a loaded uncle. And look who, one of my advocate brothers in the LGBTQ plus community literally just popped on as we're talking about this. So this is about to turn after dark. All right. So to Thaddeus' question, if you can address that and put us on a cliffhanger until we have you come back and talk about this after dark, because I think that's a whole big question in itself. But if you could maybe just talk about, is Field's Corner Yoga a welcoming space?
Absolutely. And I would say at a high level, just speaking about yoga
Yep.
and accessibility to yoga.
Yep.
One of the things that I believe in is empowering that community to teach themselves. So I can teach anybody to be a yoga teacher, and then they have the cultural competency and the cultural awareness to then teach their people the best. So I think that's actually what I would say to anybody in terms of making yoga accessible. Firstly, everybody's always welcome in Field's Corner Yoga.
Yep,
That goes without saying, as you can see from the folks that have been a part of the community from the beginning. But again, to reiterate that, philosophically speaking, from where I stare as a yoga practitioner, I want to empower people from all different demographics, from all different social identities, to be able to develop their own practice and share their own practice with the folks that they have and share community with. Because it's important to have lived experience to share and develop connection. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with protecting that and curating a space for that. And that shows love and compassion. So I think from my standpoint, from what I was taught with yoga, that's one of the best ways, is to just empower folks to be leaders in that space by becoming yoga teachers.
That I definitely like that answer. And it also, speaks, it doesn't negate, what Thaddeus was raising about welcoming. You clarified Field's Corner Yoga is a welcoming space. And it is, that's a loaded question that maybe we can unpack more after dark, because there are some realities within the dynamics of the definition of men's wellness and manhood that can be discussed further.
Just 1 second.
Yes, go ahead.
I think it's critical to go back to one of my first statements, in that I go beyond that. I don't live in the adjectives.
Okay.
As a practitioner,
particularly in this space and context right now. Go ahead.
As a practitioner, yeah. I go beyond the adjectives because my focus is on serving the humanity in you. If I'm sharing time and space with you, I'm honoring your humanity.
Yes, sir.
Not your identity.
Yep. Got you.
And I hope that by honoring your humanity, I am then acknowledging your freedom to self-identify, because you are beyond that. You are a loved person.
Yep.
Right. So if I can be just an inkling of that love, if I can just be another facet of that love that is already on you, and I can help grow that, that's how you serve as a yoga teacher. How I was shown philosophically to serve and to share as a yoga teacher is to focus on the humanity, the noun, and less on the adjectives.
That was good. And Uncle Thaddeus, thank you for that question. Because I know his intentionality there around some things, and he, with the humanity piece, like almost a decade ago, I saw something he did, and I was like, okay, thank you, Uncle Thaddeus, for allowing folks from that community, from our community, to be seen. Reverend Imani says that would seem to underscore, and we're a little bit behind with points, with comments, but that would seem to underscore the need for co-opting space where several entrepreneurs are able to collectively rent more space and time, than each able to receive a more realistic fee for service. And I'll read that again because I may have got it confused. She's saying that I think your model is a need for what you're doing for space for several entrepreneurs who are able to find collectively rent more space time, and each be able to receive a more realistic fee. So I believe that is what you're kind of doing, is that coming together with spaces.
Yeah. And again, it's really just about creating that safe space for people to build and to work and to try and to fail and to keep coming around and to keep going. That's what it is. But I think it's also important for an example of that to exist just in the community in general.
Mm-hmm.
It's important for people to have an example of a social entrepreneur, of people who are putting values and community and humanity before profits. It's very idealistic. There's tremendous risk associated with it.
Mm-hmm.
It's not what, it's counterintuitive almost, but yoga has a lot of anti-capitalist principles. So in order for me to remain true to my principles and what I believe in, I'm not concerned with other people's fears or apprehension around how lucrative my business model is. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm not concerned about their business acumen or their perspective, because that's not. It's not. I'm not ignoring it in a disrespectful way or trying to discredit it. It's meaningful if you're in particular if you have investors, and depending on what you're doing. But this is the journey of Phil's Corner Yoga. There's no recipe to it. It's just, it stands alone. It's running its own race. And it's not looking at what other people are doing.
Again, I appreciate the clarity. And speaking of clarity, after all of that, Uncle Thaddeus, we call him Uncle Java in here, he says, "Oh, James, that question was really for you." I appreciate his answer. Uncle, again, that is a very it's an interesting space, just generally speaking, because I think in my intersections I've felt forced to prioritize which adjective I walk in the most, and so even in real time now, my brain and a little bit of heart is like, okay. And to that point, Tashad says, this is a good, everybody is just enjoying the conversation. Shaun, I should have allotted 90 minutes for you because it is 10:54 and I feel like it's only been 20 minutes. And I'm technically supposed to be on I think 10:30 call. But I want folks to know how to follow you. You're primarily active on Instagram. And so we do stuff in real time.
I have Google as well. You can just Google. Okay. If you Google Phil's Corner Yoga, it's 2025. There's search engine optimization tools. You're in media and tech and stuff like that. I think you should be aware of these.
What is your
it is EFSIWAI.
EFSIWAI.
Yes.
I still don't understand what EFSIWAI. That's not Phil's Corner Yoga.
That's FCY. Phonetically, Boston Public Schools Advanced Work Program, Phineas Bates School.
I was in advanced class 4th and 5th and 6th grade. FCY. All these times seeing it on Instagram, asking you for it before. Folks, on Instagram, this is where you can go to follow Shaun and Field's Corner Yoga, and also Google him, Field's Corner Yoga. Help get that algorithm set up on Yoga with the business optimization stuff that goes on there. I'm just going to do one more swipe of the comments. Look at Instagram to see folks over there. World Tour is in the building and says fire. Mrs. Politics just jumped on as well, but we're getting ready to wrap up. Everybody's saying we need more of these conversations. Sir Collins from out in Los Angeles is quoting you, and Tasha said we need more time. I'm definitely going to give this brother opportunity to give a synopsis. Let us know if you have anything coming up or what's next for you. And again, we will have Brother Shaun back, because this was just an hour, and we could have probably done one of those 2-hour podcast recordings. So what's next for Field's Corner Yoga? What's next for you? I'm serious about this 40 thing. 40 is a number of change. And so if you're like this now, you're probably going to pull up one day and be floating in the seat. Go ahead.
What's next for Field's Corner Yoga was your first question.
Well, I'll say what's next for you and Field's Corner Yoga.
For me, I just going to keep praying, just keep praying, just keep living.
You about to make these mothers go in.
I'm just blessed. I have so much. I live a life of abundance. I can't operate without gratitude and appreciation. So I'm just going to keep that in front of my head for me. So that's that. Field's Corner Yoga is growing very quickly, very beautifully. It's very humble. And I expect it to continue to be a humble space that caters to the needs of the community. And I'm really, really just excited for people to take risks and continue to try things that they haven't tried in the space. I mean, there's been open mics in there, poetry open mics in there. There's been all different types of dinners where people are doing different things.
The space is
there's like things you could never think of. We've been blessed to have very meaningful events, from holistic workshops to repasses and everything in between that you could think of. And it's just filled with love and gratitude. And every time I enter the space, it just almost feels surreal. And I just feel so blessed to be able to provide that space to the community. And I'm really excited. Anybody listening in, I'm open to any type of conversation, open to any collaboration. No idea is strange. I will tell you if it doesn't work, and I'm going to do my best to try to make it work for you. I can't give stuff away for free, but I'll do my best to get as close as I can if that's what you need, so.
That's a whole other conversation in itself. And this brother's, Uncle Thaddeus, this brother's definitely been working on me in some of the similar spaces you have as well. So I really appreciate you, man. It's so interesting because I've known you for years. And definitely I will go ahead and name that early on during COVID, when he was in a former life and then it's sort of a capitalistic political space.
Bureaucratic.
I was a combination of
I was a cog in the wheel. I wasn't a cat. There's not a capitalist in that concrete building. He didn't have a window.
He was in. Never mind, because
I was in Treasury.
Yeah, Treasury is near the broken escalator. No, so I'm
Shout out to Treasury though. Shout out to Drew Smith.
They get a lot of stuff done. But in all seriousness, filled out. So city called, either Marty or somebody called and said, "Hey, we see what you're doing. Apply for the grant." Apply for the grant. I got a phone call. Did I get a phone call?
I think I emailed you because I didn't have a phone.
Emailed you. Okay.
I didn't have a phone.
Emailed me and we got connected. But I think there was we were familiar before that.
That was because of Breakfast with Brothers back at the Matter Hunt.
With Matt.
Yeah, and then Rashad was still at the Matter Hunt back then too.
Rashad Cope.
Yeah. And then Jerome Day as well. That was back then.
Okay. So that's how far.
Yeah.
But so we were in here talking about some of the equipment and stuff earlier. He made a joke. He said, "Well, would you say I bought that or something like that?" The Rodecaster, I mean, the Mevo camera. Like, this brother invested early through his role in facilitating the support of the resilience. Was it the Resiliency Fund?
So this is what happened. I'm sitting there. What happened was I'm over here running through these applications for the Boston Resiliency Fund. And this Java with Jimmy, I'm like, hold on. I started looking at the names. I'm like, hold on. I started Googling because, I don't have no Facebook or nothing like that. And sure enough, I'm like, James Hills. Let me.
So, in 5 years, I've gotten close. I've never, ever almost do.
So I emailed you and I'm like, is this you? And you're like, yeah. I'm like, you good. We good. We're going to figure this out.
Hopefully Marty's not watching this.
That was that.
But no, I definitely appreciate that, and the present day investment that just challenging and being a better entrepreneur and a businessman, challenging me on my wellness. This brother checks in just to check in, and so you don't get that often. So I appreciate it. And there's a different level of respect for you as a person. Sitting here and talking to you today. Like, I get to see you even in your fun times. I know who you are and your philosophy, but seeing you in your serious role in the non-fun time. And I know this is fun for you, but it's different. It is different, man. This is good. This was good. And everybody is in the comments just talking about they appreciate the conversation. And this brother wants to figure out how to support you. And this was great brew this morning. They call my mother, prayer changes things. Daddy said he enjoys the conversation. And amen and say less. So my mother wants the after dark with you. That Ma, you can't be on that after dark. We're gonna have to block you from that. But no, seriously, bro, I appreciate you for the contribution you made today. And also to me personally and to community and to the wellness community. Because if it wasn't for y'all, Uncle Thaddeus is he a teach to teach? I think he is certified to teach instructors at not minimal he may be at the level of certification to teach yoga, but I think he also might be certified. So have y'all connected lately?
We will.
Okay. And Reverend Amani, need more of these think tank. Thank you, Reverend Amani. Think tank opportunities. Okay. All right. We can be here forever. It's 11:04 and I'm 34 minutes late for a meeting. Thank you all for tuning in today. We will have Brother Shaun back after dark soon to have some more conversation. And thank all of you. We'll recap. Actually, we have a show at 12 o'clock with Brother Conan Harris. From Conan Harrison Associates and for the Meet Boston Regional Career Fair. So we'll see you all back at noon. Have a great day, everybody. We appreciate you.